hello everyone and welcome to Twimbit Immersions. Well, it is that day of the week when we all get together to collectively think and talk through some of the pressing business challenges, issues, or opportunities, that are keeping the industry leaders on their toes. And the topic we are going to talk about today is what are the network transformations and evolutions that are going to happen or that are beginning to happen as networks get themselves ready for the next decade. Before we proceed further, let me quickly introduce you to our speaker today. Welcome, Dheeraj. Dheeraj is Senior Vice President, Technology and Networks at Reliance Jio. Mind you, he controls the digital lives of about 370 million users that are spread across India. Welcome, Dheeraj, and thank you so much for joining us. Could you please give us a brief introduction about yourself and your career history so far?
Yeah, thank you, Inderpreet. And it's really a privilege to be part of this session and maybe share some of the experiences and how we are going to, how do we imagine the telco to be there in the future. And also I will try to share my experience and also some of my career journey also towards this path. So my name is Dheeraj Sharma and working for Reliance Jio for the last almost 10 years and since the beginning of Reliance Jio. And as you know, Reliance Jio is a very young organization compared to the rest of the telcos in the world. And so you see whatever the growth has happened in the last 7-8 years, initially in the 4G rollout across pan India, and then later on, then taking this network to the fixed broadband for the homes and the fixed enterprise or the enterprises of India, and also touching some of the TV side, the cable world also, cable customers also. So this journey has been very phenomenal, and both from the individual, from personally for me, for the organization, as well as for the country. And the country has seen the revolution in the data consumption. The country used to be at somewhere the 100 plus, 120th place. And with the new architecture, the new network, and the new technology, and the country has come to maybe in the top 2, top 3 in terms of the data consumption. And it has been possible because the entire leadership was able to imagine how we are going to having a next generation telco or the telco of the future, not the legacy, the mode of the telcos. So and it's a further, I think, when we see in the last 5-6 years, the things are changing. And if we take it to the next level, how the things are going to evolve in next 5 years, I think that's going to be our key focus and the key discussion. And similarly for my own career also, I started with a very legacy mode of the careers as a network planning engineer and more working on the technology side, the architecture side, and for the mostly for the broadband and then the enterprises. That was my initial career. But as in the last 15 years, I think there has been more on the how do we take this learning of the networks, the infrastructure, and the various services of the customer and to the next level. And what is the next level? How do we use this knowledge to the scale up, and how do we use this knowledge to do the making it more economical for the business? So scale and the economics, I think taking these two things on the center stage, and that was the initial part of the transformation, and where the automation had a big role to play. So whatever the things were used to be into the more of a manual mode, and taking to the how do we use it for the automation of each and every activity we do in the network side. And I think that was the focus area, I would say, maybe the 5 years back. And that helped us in doing one is the very fast rollout of the network, and also making it very economical, making it very standardized and very uniform, and the pan India rollout to reach to the masses. And I think that was the key focus area. And when we reach to that stage, and in the meantime, we see the how the customer experience are the things are changing in the world, and customer expectation, customer experience, that was a challenge. So last 2 3 years, network automation, we have continued to grow and continue to further evolve as the networks are changing. So we'll discuss that part, I think, in the detail into the discussion. But taking that mode of transformation from the network transformation to the customer experience transformation, and that is the last 3 years of the experience where we have been more focused on the customer experience transformation, and how do we improve the customer experience, and working backward with the network automation, working backward with the architecture and the technology, and forward with the customers. I think making it more of a 360-degree transformation, because it cannot be done a customer experience in a silo. It require all the other things also has to be involved and completed, then only the customer experience can be done. So the architecture transformation is the one area we'll discuss in detail. Then how we leverage the network automation and the automation for the network and the infra automation, and then we make it more toward the customer experience transformation. So I think these three things is the one which is going to be today more focus of the discussion. And how do we imagine the telco in the future, say in 2027, and each of the area how we are going to evolve, and all the three areas. And that's the I think the focus area what I will be able to share my experience in this next 30 40 minutes in the session.
Thank you, Dheeraj. This is brilliant. I think we have set the context right, and we have I think the most appropriate speaker with us who has lived and seen this journey of a transformation. Reliance Jio, although was, a greenfield operator, but it has made significant transformation from 4G to now being ready to launch 5G in India, and having moved from purpose-built network to introducing cloud and native kind of technology or cloud transformations as part of its network. So I think we are all good there. Now, if you allow me a bit, I can tell you as a consumer, what are my expectations from my telecom service provider. And I can say that they have escalated to a great extent in the past 5 years. And I see my telco to play a significant role and being relevant in my digital life by ensuring a seamless experience as I consume these digital services or OTT services. If I look ahead in 5 years, I don't see myself as a consumer buying bandwidth or data packages, bundled with different connectivity, different OTT services or digital services. I think the role a telco is going to play in my life would be much bigger and beyond that. My expectation from my telco service provider would be to orchestrating an experience for me as I move through my day, orchestrating that journey seamlessly through various platforms or various touch points for me. So maybe I'm, a little too far-fetched in my imagination. That's my vision or version of the story. But Dheeraj, can you validate that for me? What do you think the future of telco network looks like? What is your utopian view there?
Yeah, Inderpreet, I think you have touched a very, very relevant point, because we have now the earlier, I think the telco used to create the networks, and then customer used to get the services, whatever is available. And the customer experience, every customer is having a different the lifestyle, different working at a home, at a office, and everyone having a different requirement, or maybe different use cases are there. And customer wants he should be having a single touch point, and maybe in the background the telco is having a various integrations with the various collaborators, various content providers, or various service providers, whether through the cloud or whether through the maybe the hosted by the telco directly, as per the business case. But at least customer wants to having a experience, a seamless experience not only the connectivity, even for the services also. Whether he wants to have the OTT services, he don't want, nobody wants to having a 20 OTT players and get the subscription done that for each and individual OTT players. Very difficult for anyone to manage, and each of the OTT content having a separate subscription, separate billing, and separate experience. So everybody wants to having a one-touch experience, and everyone want to having a bundle services based on the his requirement, and it could be different for a different the cohort or for a different customer segment. But and in the background, telco would definitely having a challenge in working with the various the contents and various the application players putting in the cloud, and then creating that platform. So I would see the next gen the this telco are the three areas are there where they are trying to and bring major changes. One is from the platform point of view, and platforms are becoming critical. So they are having a right platforms based on the customer's experience requirement, and there will be a platform for the customer platform. There will be platform for the various network clouds and infrastructure platforms are there, and nobody has to do manually and working across the platforms. Once a business requirement is coming to a business facing platforms, and rest this platform is the one which is orchestrating the journey across the various platforms to fulfill the requirements of the customer. And then in this piece, the various process transformation, the process enablement at the customer facing and in the backend, and that automation, and that is another area which is there, and I'm sure we are going to cover that part also. And then the people, because all these things when the customer having a different requirements, without changing the people, this platform cannot change, process cannot change, because these people also have to change, and that's the fundamental requirement. We discussed maybe one the previous session also, how the people transformation, the skill set transformation, because the people only first has to understand what are the changes required and how we can implement these changes. The people in the telco who are there in the telco mindset, and people in the I would say the IT or internet companies like the Amazons and the Googles and the Microsoft and all. So there has to be the transformation of the people, so that the telcos are able to they build that skill set, reskill the skill set. So far they are able to do, and wherever the people can be upgraded, and also having the workforce coming from the kind of the ITs and internet companies also, so that they are also able to bring them, and then able to ensure that these journeys are like the services which are being given by the Netflix or the Google or by the Amazon. So these telcos, the people changing, the process changing, the platform changing, and that all the three things are the one which are going to take the telco to the future telco. And I'm sure that every telcos has started this journey, and in the I would say in the background, and some of the things are visible, and some of the things are going to be accelerated, and that's the critical area for every telco. And I'm sure every telco has started their journey in that direction, because without this they cannot evolve to the future telco in next couple of years.
That's interesting. What from network architecture point of view, specifically how, and we are hearing a lot about virtualization happening in telco networks, the shift towards open RAN or open architecture is being talked about. How do you see that impacting the networks of the future? How is that going to play a very critical role? Is it like we are going to have a 100% virtualized network? Is that the only version of a network that is going to exist? A truly completely virtualized, a highly automated, and a completely software driven network? Is that the view we are seeing by 2027 or 2030?
Directionally, yes, what you are saying. And if I try to take this discussion, what shifts which are happening and which are which are going to happen in next 5 years in terms of the network architecture. So one is, yes, you have covered key, yes, is it has to be open and agile. So that's very important. But what all things are going to change within the network architecture? So if I try to see the various the parameters or various areas where the changes are going to happen. One is, yes, today uh, things are moving, and what we have seen, everything which are going to be the boxes, and now it's moving to the virtualize, is going to be cloud based, no doubt in that. But that's not the only area. The other area which is there, key, the telcos were last 20 years. There was a there was an efforts to reduce the cap opex and capex by consolidation of the network to the centralized. So net more and more is a centralized network, better used to be the opex model, opex. And my own experience, there used to be a drive around 10 years back, consolidation of the network more and more centralized, and bringing more and more customer to the less number of sites, so that we have a less number of sites, less number of your sites, everything becoming centralized, so that the capex, opex becomes controlled, because everything was manual. So there, more number of sites means more number of higher the opex, because you need to put the people are going to manage the things, people, you need a large number of people manning those sites, because automation was missing. And that used to be the direction. And customer bandwidth, experience, latency, that was not on the critical path. Connectivity at a right cost was the more important and more critical. Then the experience, the latency, the bandwidth, those were the not so critical. So that used to be the network strategy and network architecture, and everybody used to be very I would say pushing in the system. Okay, how do we bring more and more centralized? How do we reduce the number of sites? And now things are moving the other way around. Now everybody is saying how we can from now centralized, how we can go backward to near to the customer, and how do we can make it distributed. How? Why? Because now everyone wants to having a better controls near to the customer. Customer is having a better experience. Customer is having a low latency, ultra low latency, and whatever the edge, the whether is a the computing edge computing, we are going near to the customer. The content which is there, it has to be near to the customer, so that we are able to give him a better experience, the OTT content or any other content which is there. So there is a, and plus it's not only the hardware, the most of the controllers are becoming centralized, and it's only the one which is required near to the customer, whether it's a RAN or it's a OLT or any other network element which near to be near to the customer. So everyone prefers that has to be near to the customer, so that we are able to giving a better experience. And while the controls are only sitting in the in our the data centers which are centralized. So I think having a distributed control and distributed data plane architecture, so now the things are moving back. Now more and more distributed elements are coming up, because now we are having a better controls, and there is no need to having a person going and visiting the sites for maintaining or managing the things. Most of the activities are very highly automated, autonomous, and can be managed from the automated operations and automated systems. And that is why the things are moving from centralized to the distributed. Another dimension of this architecture is there. Everyone used to be having a very static network. When it's a static network, in terms of the capacity, in terms of the size, in terms of the, because there was nothing was virtualized, whether it's a software components, everything was static. And now, because the use cases are different, geographies are different, and it is ever changing, and it's a very static. So when the customer requirements and the customer behavior are changing, that is very dynamic. So the dynamic customer and dynamic customer demands are changing based on the behavior changes and other and type of the customer in that area. So there cannot be a dynamic customer without a static network. So it's a mismatch. So it means the network also has to be having a dynamic. When it's a dynamic, whatever the softwares are there, whatever the workloads are there, whatever their capacities are there, whatever their CPU sizes were there, their memory size were there, their softwares are there, type of softwares are there. So that is also has to be dynamic. So we cannot having a customer experience managed on a static network, because then earlier if there is a need of change, then you have to change the network. You have to forklift the network. And today requirement is there has to be a dynamic network, and on based on the requirement, you should be people should be able to make the changes and on the fly, or not even on the fly, automated based on the customer requirements. The the AI ML algorithms are the one who are deciding whether it's a auto healing, whether it's a self healing, whether it's a changing the configurations, whether it's changing the capacities, and the slicing, network slicing, the bandwidth slicing, service slicing, and all the things has to be dynamic in nature. Then only the future telcos can be created. So, and then dimensions to that is there. Now the hardwares are becoming more of a open hardware. Earlier it used to be a black box. Now it is becoming a more of an open box, so that you are able to have the various software which are coming up, various applications which are coming up, which are sitting on the cloud, that people should be able to orchestrate and put into the system. And then there is no need to having a multiple boxes coming up, because each vendor is giving a different functionality. The stack of boxes are changing to the single box, which are open, hardware is open, and software also based on the requirement, mostly a open source software. Wherever not open source, at least having the application which are sitting on these boxes based on the requirement. So we are moving from a closed hardware, the closed appliances, to the open hardware, open appliances. And instead of having a stack of the multiple boxes, we are coming to the maybe less number of boxes, less number of the hardware, and having a multiple function, multiple purpose is being solved by the same hardware. And then we add to the security part, which is we cannot say now all these things are coming up. The security also is very, very, very critical. Earlier, everyone is having a security was used to be separate, connectivity is separate. There used to be a separate team who is working on the security, and each part of the security is happening in a different way. Now it is the security is not in a separate element or a separate area. The security is embedded into any of the things which are being worked on. So we cannot isolate a security separately. It is a on demand basis or on a need basis. No. Security of the network, security of the customer, security of the services is is fundamentally integrated into any of the solution or any of the architecture which is there. So the old generation way of working, a securities appliances and security requirement addressed separately, and now it is moving to the security is also integrated. So now if we add all these 4 or 5 areas what we discussed related to the network architecture from a box point of view, where virtual and cloud virtualization in the cloud is having a major role, and I don't see like in next 5 years we'll reach 100% of the virtualization or cloud, except the one which is some hardware which are remain in the system which will continue to work. But any new deployment which is happening, it is 100% cloud. Any old transformation happening or anything getting obsolete is also going to move to the cloud. So I'm saying most part of the networks here will get into the cloud and virtualize, barring very few elementary thing where we don't no need to go because of the various investment which has been happened, and there is no need. But we'll reach to near to 100% in terms of the at least the core part. Access also is moving. New investment is 100% getting into the cloud and virtualized mode. Then we are saying that centralized distributed. So having a all the new deployment is happening more of a distributed environment, and existing also the wherever the support is happening, slowly moving from a centralized to the centralized plus distributed, and eventually to the distributed architecture. Capacity from static to dynamic, then all hardware, software from close to open, and security embedded into the overall architecture. I think these are the 5 or 6 areas which are the fundamental shift happening in the network architecture. Part of that is already happened, and rest is going to be accelerated. And there is no way any of these things can be now sacrificed by any of the telco in terms of the network architecture transformation for the future telco in the coming years.
That is interesting. And if, let's say, we have this network ready, what outcomes we expect it to deliver?
Sorry, can you repeat? I somehow missed the last line.
Yeah. So let's say we have this future network ready. It is agile. It is open. It is virtualized. It's automated. What outcomes for the users? Let it be an enterprise customer or it be a retail customer like me. What outcomes we expect it to deliver or to enable?
So for a customer for a customer experience is nothing but a service experience. So the experience one is the requirement which used to be more of a fixed configuration or the fixed bundles or the fixed plans, which is moving, but at least that has been the more of a one of the pain points of the customer. So because one size fits all was the more of the telco strategy, and based on the telco flexibility, they used to having some number of plans, and everyone want to fit into that plan. That has been the behavior in the past, and now we are seeing the shift is where the plans and the bundles and the services are tailor made to the customer. When I say tailor made to the customer is having a pick and choose of various services, various bouquet of services or various bundles, and in each of the bundle, within the bundle also, when each of the services also there, and that also there is a further options are there, because everyone has to see what is his usage pattern, what is his cost effectiveness or cost affordability of that segment, and what type of services he want to use, whether it's the the collaboration services, whether it is the partner services, because there are some content partners or other partners are there who are hosting and putting the services or working along with the telcos, and the basic connectivity and basic plans, the security, the endpoints, the CPs, and enterprise maybe having a beyond that. It's not only the connectivity, but within their office, whether they want to take a managed services, whether they want to take a managed CPs, or they want to take the CPs coming from the telcos itself. So there's all this requirement which is changing from every customer, and customer expect all this he should have an options to buy whatever he's required. And more on the enterprise, it is more even critical, because enterprise are also having a various type of the enterprises, and within the enterprises also, then there is a different type of within the different type of or different size of the enterprises, and that range not only for 5, 10 type of enterprises. If I try to see a complete spectrum, we see almost 200 segments of the enterprises if you want to go to the micro level. And just take example of whether you say the hotels. The hotels can be a 5-star hotels, can be a resort, can be a boarding lodge, it can be a 2-star hotel, or it can be, I would say, there may be a 10 types of the segment within that, and then within 10 types, the size and the type also varies, because each is having a different requirement. 5-star is having a different requirement. A chain of hotel will be having a different requirement. Individual hotel, individual motel will having a different requirement, and all these things. And each, some wants to having a complete bundle, somebody wants to having a discrete, somebody wants to only couple of things, because rest of the things they are able to manage on their own. So having that flexibility and having a marketplace, and then they are able to put their requirements, and in the background the telcos are having a capability to do this bundling it, configuring it, enabling it, and also giving the services at their doorstep, and also meeting their life cycle management of these flexible services, not only providing once, because each of the services also going to having a different life cycle management. Customer is same, but his requirement are going to change on every single day. And how do we manage, how the telcos manage? And that's the one area, because of this architecture, because of the economics, because of the these platforms and this process automation, and that is how the customers are going to get the benefit out of that. So if the customer is having a complete flexibility to choose what he wants at any point in time, he can say ki I want these services maybe for this 1 year. Next year he doesn't require. Next year the requirement is something different. Whether it's a software, whether it's a Microsoft 365, whether he requires some of the gadgets, some of the devices, whether he wants some managed services, he wants to reduce his OpEx, whether he wants to manage infrastructure also coming from the telco. So based on the each of the segment, and that flexibility will have to be given by the telcos, because they want to uh, take out the maximum telco and IT consumptions of the customer. That's how he can improve his economics. Otherwise, telco will remain only just a pipe provider, and the other players who are just having a application and the hosted content and all, they are going to make more money. But if you address the entire spectrum, and that is how the telcos can increase their revenue and also participate on not only the capex but the entire opex and the operational life cycle of the customer. So that's the area. And then from customer point of view, the previously everything was reactive, but the customer wants everything to be proactive as much as possible. When I say proactive, if there is a change happening, it has to be alerted to him. If there is a problem in somewhere, even the customer network also, which telco is able to see and able to analyze, extending that analytics to the customer, extending the analytics to the customer key where he should make the changes, so that sometimes he has to change the bandwidth, he has to put the more money, somewhere he has to change the CPs because performance is getting degraded because of something. So wherever the telco is able to is providing, he also has to give him a transparent view proactively in terms of the analytics, in terms of the usage, in terms of the performance, and also giving him a recommendations also, and so that he'll be able to understand the pain points proactively and able to give them the solution. And then the the telcos were always working on the network operation center, business operation center, but now the customer wants only a customer operation center or a service operation center, whatever name we give. So the operation center has to be not the 3 or 4 or 5 operation center telco is having, and then tickets are moving from one to the other, and customer is only seeing it is taking time. But if everything is customer backward, it means there is a only operation center, and that operation center is only one, which is a service and customer operation center. There is no other operation center. Where is the billing issue, where is the network issue, where is the service issue, wherever the issue is there, customer wants, he or she should be heard immediately, whatever his pain points are there, and he cannot be given the various the back end where the problems are there, how the problems are going to tackle. Nobody is interested. So he only the customer wants his pain points should be addressed as a one single point of contact, so that he doesn't have to go back and forth to the customer contact center, then this center and that center, and then tickets are moving, and then he's only getting the information, and that's the area. And then so wherever the customer is having a problem, customer wants everything has to be closed loop. So anything he's opening a ticket, finally it has to be closed with his agreement, with his concurrence. And whether is there a new requirement coming up, new billing issue coming up, new challenges, new plans are coming up. Because when we discussed initially, the customer life cycle management is very complex. To build that complexity, the rest of the process, rest of the system also has to be has to be ready to handle that part of activities during the entire life cycle. So I think this is the way, I think this is the that the shift into the telco architecture and the process and the automation is going to help the customer also meeting the customer expectation seamlessly. And that is how the customer experience is going to be improved drastically with the changes and the transformation happening on the telco side.
That's interesting, Dheeraj. I, as a customer, maybe, the first thing I relate to is um, when I'm at home, I'm working, perhaps, I'm working on a network which gives me more deterministic kind of service quality. Later in the day, if I'm playing a game, perhaps, I'm working on a slice, or I'm using a slice which gives me a better latency or something of that sort. Um, I try to manage different things that I'm doing, and at the same time, I'm offsetting the cost. Maybe I have to pay a lot more for a deterministic network if I'm using it throughout the day, but then I can offset it if I'm picking and choosing it based on my requirement. Maybe that's the extreme sort of flexibility that I'm looking at as a customer. But I'll invite here Manoj. He's here, he has joined us, and maybe he has a question for us.
Yeah, hey, thank you very much, Dheeraj. And it was fascinating, and particularly hearing from you how Geo could even visualize such a extreme level of consumption of data and build a network to support that. Is absolutely incredible. One is to visualize it, and second is to make it a reality, and third is to actually deliver it at a cost structure that a billion people in the country can afford it. So truly remarkable. So I want to extend that a little further. So today telcos spend anywhere between 10 to 18 or 20% of the revenue in capex, and the telcos are consistently being challenged with they are not able to monetize the network as much as application developers on top of their network. So when you think about this future of the network, what is the right cost structure? Given all that automation is possible, in your opinion, what is the desired right cost structure to deliver an optimal business model for a telco moving forward? Is there like a utopian view of what that cost structure can be?
So Manoj, yeah, I would say very complex question, but I will try to put in a different way. And again, I will again try to bring go customer backward to taking this also. Like we discussed the scales, and we discussed the elasticity, or the variation of the customer requirements and ever changing requirement. How do we address that? And the cost structure, which again I'm saying that I was taking use the word the static versus the dynamic. Similarly, the cost structure also has to be now the like everyone used to be having a fixed infrastructure and fixed services. Similarly, the operational economics we want to derive from the future telcos, it has to be, everything has to be moved from the static to the on demand. And that how is there? Because when I say the shift in the on demand is there, everyone was going for the price per box, price per hardware, price per network element, and everyone wants to say ki one use case put one box, another use case put one box, third use case put another one box. That's the one way you, every use case you keep on putting the boxes. And now that requirement is coming up, you use the hardware, you use the put the infra, but then whatever the requirements are coming for use cases, then because that use cases are going to change, and like Inderpreet was saying, morning he's working from the office, work from the home, and when they're relaxing for 1 hour time, maybe wants to use the gaming. Now in the edge, if you're going to say somebody going to put a two or different type of boxes giving a different experience to the same customer is going to pay almost the same money. When you are having a dynamic requirements, your network architecture process and everything also has to be dynamic. So the prices which used to be per box, it has to be now, it was a use case scenario under the same application, for how much time it is working, how much workload it is happening. That is how the the pricing has to be changed. Similarly, the pricing which are used to be like a fixed pricing, now we are seeing it per license, per application. All the things are there so that you are able to see if somebody requires a very separate application, that you are able to port that application on a need basis, on an instant basis, and then you are able to offset that cost and give to that. But that cost you are not putting for every boxes because you don't require it, and you don't have to give that applications through the wherever you are buying for the software provider, but you only use it wherever it is required. So the dynamic application on the boxes, on the hardware, dynamic software. Then the TCO, which used to be more of a linear TCO. Now the TCO has to be different when you scale up. You cannot have the same TCO because once you scale up in particular area, particular demand, then the cost structure has to be very dramatically low. And that, because then only you will be able to I would say pass on that benefit to the customer. If anything which is becoming more popular, then the TCO has to be at a much lower cost with the scale. It cannot be linear TCO. It has to be if the scale is increasing, that TCO has to be much better. Then only it can be passed on to the customer, and finally you are if you are able to having a less TCO, then only, or sorry, a better TCO, then you can only pass on to the customer. If your cost structure is very high, OPEX is very high, then customer cannot benefit out of that. And then the other use case was there earlier, every deployment which you used to see, every deployment was a very fixed and rigid deployment. And whenever the customer behavior is changing, then you change the hardware, you change the software, and software was coupled with the hardware, which finally you have to forklift and make the changes. And that used to be a very big cost. And you can say I would say maybe 20%, 30% you are changing the network. It means that is finally that is the OPEX and every year. But if you are having a very good flexibility, if there are changes happening, and then the changes you are only happening in the clouds, and you are able to orchestrate those changes in the various elements, then upgrades are going to be much lower. You don't need to upgrade if there is a functionality changing, because just you are putting that software, additional software. But the boxes, the manpower cost, infrastructure cost, that cost is saved. And that from a fixed predefined deployment to the use case based deployment and a flexible deployment, and you are doing that flexibility on, like, instead of having a hardware upgrade, you are doing a software upgrade, which is I would say minuscule compared to the hardware upgrade cost. And then it is not tied to the vendor, because some vendor is not able to perform, not able to give a support, then you have to change everything. Now if the one vendor is not able to perform, you change his software, change the new software, and push it to there. And that is how you are able to bring down the OPEX. And then we used to having a limited hardware software option. Now, as we are moving to the open, virtualized, neutral, and disaggregated, so it means we are able to having a much better control on this hardware as well as the software and the ever changing requirement of the software. And instead of having a limited options, like if only 2 vendors are for this particular thing, now you are having a multiple vendors. And every year, if you want to change, if there's a need, you can change it at every year also, because if the requirements are changing without changing the underlying hardware or underlying network or underlying infra. So I think these 4 or 5 things are there. We are moving from a fixed to the on demand configuration, deployment mode, infrastructure or software, hardware, whatever we name, and the application. That is going to give us a very big advantage to the future telcos, to reducing the OPEX, improving the TCOs, and pass on the benefit to the customer. So customers are having a more flexibility, more services, without burdening that linearly to the operator. Because if requirements are changing and we can keep on increasing the capex and opex linearly, then I think then we cannot meet the customer experience at the same cost. So that you're right, the cost with the scale has to come down drastically, and with the added on flexibility, dynamic, the characteristics of each of the network, and that's how we are able to pass on that benefit to the customer.
Excellent. Any top level numbers? So, for example, given that this open disaggregation of the layer of the network technology is going to take place, and the way we have traditionally operated, do you see, like, if you had to set a goal for a traditional operator today, is it realistic to say I can cut costs by both capex and opex by close to 40-50% over the next 5 years? Is that, is that ambitious? Is that less ambitious? What is the, is there a metric? Is there a benchmark? What can you use? Is there, I'm asking the same question again in a different language.
So Manoj, I think numbers, I may not be able to give the numbers because numbers also will vary for various
Correct.
type of the customer segment.
Operators, absolutely.
So like mobility, it will be different. The 5G, 4G will be different. 5G will be different because each of the transformation journeys are different, and each of the TCOs also different, touching to the element. Though underlying network could be common, but still there are incremental things which are happening for each of the segment depending upon the what type of connectivity you give, what type of the services you give him, managed service and all. So each of the, I would say, the enterprises, and within enterprise we discussed there are 200 type of enterprise are there. So the TCO benefit, somewhere it will be very large, somewhere it could be very incremental, and I would say ki more and more capabilities telco has as an integrated capability, and where they are having a improved TCO, and then that what telcos are able to improve, having a improvement in the TCO, that the customer also get the benefit eventually. But
Got it.
fixed,
Got it.
it cannot be a fixed number. The numbers for the type of the customer, number of the
Correct.
type of the connectivity. So it will vary. I cannot say it can be single digit, it can be double digit also. And you gave a very ambitious number, but I'm sure that also is possible in some of the bundles. I'm not saying it cannot be possible, because then it is not only connectivity, you are also seeing the digital services, you are seeing the life cycle cost. But if somebody is able to say ki, if I am having a 10 services as a bundle, and if you buy from 10 different service providers, it can be 50% also, because then you are able to, you are working on that scale, and you are having a all these alliances and the partners and everything there, and you are giving a single services. And I have seen the, when people are taking the bundles, that they may or may not realize, but the benefit which is given to them is very huge benefit. When we say try to
Correct.
see their TCO from their total cost of the services, they are able to get a very large benefit out of that.
Correct, correct. Maybe one other added question. As you talked about this future network, so clearly, how do you visualize the team? You know, do you see that telcos will have more? Because if you have to aggregate multiple vendors, it has to be software based. Do you see that you will have more in-house capabilities? Your network and engineering teams and IT teams, one will converge, and definitely you will have more control over the network itself as compared to today, because today you were relying on external vendors, proprietary networks. So any guidance on how that shift, and what does it mean for CTOs of organizations for the next like what is that vision for, let's say, 2027? What does the team look like?
Very, very, very interesting, and very, very, I would say, a difficult to answer as of now. But uh, there are three steps to this, three challenges, or I would say three steps, which at least we have been working on. One is, we are having the entire telcos are having a existing skill set, existing workforce which is there, and they are having a very domain knowledge, and we cannot ignore this workforce, and we have to ensure how we are able to leverage this workforce by upskilling and by reskilling this current workforce are there. And when I say upskilling and reskilling, they know their area, but they are not empowered with the right tools, they are not empowered with the right the customer experience journeys. So it is what we give to them, what tools we give them, or what work instruction we give to them, they work on that. But if we enable them with the right tools, right system, right platforms, and also the right training, so we reskill, and whatever the gap areas are there, because They have been facing the customer, so they know that area. But meeting the not only the one requirement, also understanding the customer, the other requirements also, and aggregating, and in the backend teams, system, platform, enabling them to take the right decisions. So they are skilled, reskilled to take care of those the customer facing, network facing, infrastructure facing journeys. And because capability wise there is no problem, but somebody has to tell them key what to be done, and that it is somebody can be a manual or somebody has to has the system and automation. So in the architecture and the process and the automation, enable them with the right tools is the way to skill them, reskill them, train them to take care of the to take the challenge of the next I would say the telco of the future. So that's the one area. The second area is there key how do we the calibrate the roles with the future skills. When I say calibrate the roles with the future skills are there, there today there are existing roles are there, and those roles the people are performing, and then if there are gaps are there, they are trained, and over a period of time they become the masters in that area. Role definitions and giving their KPIs, giving their KRAs, and then giving them the right training over a period of time. Slowly they become master in that area and they perform. There is nothing which cannot be learned in, and if there are adjacent roles are there or there are some adjacent competencies are there. So people are motivated to basically learn things which are complementing their additional current roles, and their roles are also redefined. So it's not that the existing roles are there, the existing roles are relevant, but that along the existing role, they are given the roles which are going to bring them if for their ready for the future. And it cannot be done in one day time. Some of the things, it is more of a making them train. Some of the things they can learn it, something they can start participating, and then we at least define those new roles and event slowly bring them into the new roles. And that's the area which is very important. And these are two things which are main things are there: upskilling, reskilling, and the calibrate role. There maximum thing can be achieved because it's not the people potential issue, is that somebody has to tell them what is expected out of them, and then in the process they are motivated to, because they also want to grow, they also want to learn the new things, they also want to be ready for the future. So by motivating, by training them, by enabling them for the future roles, otherwise they also know that they will become obsolete in the market if they are not able to upgrade them. And then the third part is there, which is also important. Few things, the few critical area, like the people who have been there in the the Amazons and the Googles and the Apples and IBM, Netflix and all. There are some people who have worked with this the large internet, or I would say the IT organizations. And if there are areas are there, I'm not thinking very large, very niche areas are there, so they were able to bring a right talent from these people also. So that whether it's a big data area, whether it's a some of the domains of the AI/ML, with some of the domains where on the cloud side, how they have orchestrated their experience, how we can leverage them, so that we are able to accelerate this journey of the skill set and all. So having a limited workforce coming from these people, but majority of the is has to happen from the existing workforce by calibrating the roles, upskilling them, reskilling them. So there's all the three things has to work together, and so that the skill set, the people uh, are are become ready, they're getting ready, I'm sure, in every area. But and this is a very critical area to make the telco ready for the for future. This is my view. Means I'm saying that there could be many more things, but this is my at least my view around these three.
Thank you very much, Dilip. Appreciate it. Back to you in the brief.
Thank you, Manoj. Those were very interesting questions. And we are almost through with our discussions today. Maybe we have a couple of minutes left. So I'll open it to the attendees. Please share your thoughts, your questions. If you have any comments, please do share that. Any questions here for Dheeraj or Manoj?
Only one area, I think
Maybe one. Yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Manoj, please. Please.
No, no, no. You should continue. You were going to say something, an area, and then I can ask you a very quick question.
I think another area is there. The telcos are going to be successful when they are also having the right partners. I'm saying the partner could be anything, whether it's a content partner, whether it's an application partner, whether it's a infra partner, whether it's a field services partners. Because if everyone has to, I would say all these successful IT companies, they are also are successful because they have been having a good partner framework with them. So one area which is also important to how do we enable a, a very simple and a very scaled and very transparent ecosystem working with the partners, and it could be different for different partners, and that is also very, very critical for telcos to be successful, to because if you have to accelerate the various areas and you are entering to every spectrum. So the partner ecosystem, working with the partner ecosystem is also very critical for the success of the telcos. So earlier there was I'm saying it's a historical. Every telco wants to do everything on their own. That used to be some 20 or 30 years. Now there has to be, then people start coming with some application, the services or VAS or some partners coming up. But the slowly, then people say the managed service partner. But I would say now the time has come, the business partner, infra partner, service partner, the partner also has to be like you are working with your own employees and taking care of them. The partner also has to be taken care of them, because it's a win-win situation. And plus also it gives you a flexibility and adaptability also, because changes keep on happening, and your partner also will keep on changing as the business requirements are there, are changing. So having a complete, I would say, in each of the area, how do we inject and embed the partners is also very, very important for telcos to be ready for the future. That's the one additional point I just thought we share with you.
Dheeraj, last quick comment, and it is maybe slightly more tricky, but how do you see this partner ecosystem? Do you see, any new set? Like if you look at the last 7-8 years now, for example, people like Samsung are making a major headway with regards to 5G, and suddenly becoming more visible. You now have Amazon, Google, and Microsoft becoming important part of the telco ecosystem, which was not there maybe earlier. Any other anticipation? Do you see any other new set of participants coming in to help shape this network of the future? Or do you, in any view on how you see that ecosystem changing? Maybe a short answer, because I know we are a little running out of time.
I think when I say partner, you have touched upon the major partners. But I'm saying for each vertical, like each cohort, also there will be partners. Because that's a domain knowledge.
For banking and for
banking will be different, healthcare will be different, hospitality will be different, and manufacturing will be different. Manufacturing having a automation, IoT, sensor-based IoT, their analytics, their machine knowledge. That I'm thinking agriculture. Every cohort is having a different partner ecosystem. Then in the field also, when you are having so many different in the not only in the back end system, but in the front end also, the people who understand, if I am going to a healthcare, the person should understand what is the healthcare when he's talking to the hospital and all these things. So the partner in the front end and partner in the back end. So it's going to be a very I'm thinking diverse and going to be a very large number of partners. So right now, when we say Samsung and the Google and all, they are more of a cloud partner and the infra partners at that stack level. But when you say the device level, ecosystem, and plus the cohort level, infra level, managed services level, so I think that entire ecosystem is going to be very, very, I would say, complex, but has to be very, very integrated into the entire system, and if it has to be a very successful model.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Over to you, Indra.
Yeah, if I can pick up on that, Dheeraj, let's say telcos so far have worked with a dedicated set of vendors, and I don't know if you relied mostly on them for any innovation, or was it like telcos also did some innovation to present the network in a different way? Um, is it going to change with the new kind of structures you have in place? What part of the technology stack you think you would be doing yourself? What part of it you would be relying more on these partners? Would that make sense?
So, from an innovation point of view, the innovation is the both, I think, two-pronged strategy. Our internal innovation, and be it whether it's a hardware, whether it's a platform, application around the open software, the cloud side, or the devices side. So that is the one area of innovation which is going to be there again in each of the area by the internal teams, and at the same time working with all the I would say the vendors and the partners also, and pushing them also with the innovation, and pushing them for the innovation in their area also, because that is also important to uh, bring out the best of the both the things, both the words. So I think pushing the vendor community for the innovation, or open source or standardized, the areas, making them standardized, and also putting the best efforts on that with the internal innovation also, and finally both have to work together. And again, sorry, I was just getting a call.
Uh, I think we are almost there, and we have crossed the time today. Thank you so much, Dheeraj, for joining us. It was a lovely chat to, have this discussion with you. I think I personally got a lot of information on what we can expect from the telco networks in the coming few years. I think let's conclude our chat here, but for our audience, I'll just put a reminder that we are going to see you again next week, Thursday, same time, with a new speaker. And this time we would be discussing what is happening with telco mergers and acquisitions. How do you ensure, your merger and acquisition strategy is going to work? So that's our topic for the next time. So meet you all again next Thursday. Thank you for joining us today. Have a great day, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dheeraj. Bye.